Afterwards.
Maybe let me go check it outside and then I'll give you the.
I'll use this. You can, yeah, because you can that way so you don't have to hand off. Okay. So, probably just make sure it's working. Good. Good afternoon. Happy International Women's Day. And we have an all-female cast who are up here today just to bring that topic home. My name is Pam Shaw, and I'm the Associate Vice Chancellor of Student Affairs. Thank you all for being here for the third campus-wide leadership series presentation for the spring 2019 semester. And I'd like to extend a special welcome to our colleagues who are watching this online. A special thanks to the continued support of the University of Kansas Health System, the School of Health Professions, School of Medicine, and the School of Nursing. Their continued support of this program is invaluable and much appreciated. We are thrilled today to have Erin Fulk here as our distinguished guest. Erin is the CEO and founder of Lillian James Creative. Erin founded Lillian James Creative in her garage in 2016 and has since grown her company through office spaces and now has a strong creative team of 13. Erin is a self-taught thought leader in the marketing industry and is part of the 8th entrepreneurial cohort of Scale Up Kansas City. Erin sits on the Marketing Council for the Junior League of Kansas City, Missouri, and the Board of Directors for the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce of Greater Kansas City. Erin has been featured in publications such as the Junior League's Inside Scoop and Thinking Bigger Business magazine, and has recently received a GEM Award for her innovative marketing initiatives for the Junior League's largest fundraising event. Erin regularly produces her own podcast, the Cocktail Hour Podcast, where inspirational women in business share ideas and concepts that are designed to motivate, inspire, and challenge today's businesswoman. With almost 14,000 LinkedIn connections, Erin excels at understanding and strategically leveraging online platforms to build her network, expand her influence, and grow her company. And we are thrilled to have Erin here today to share her story and to help us understand how we can better leverage LinkedIn to further our personal and professional brands. Please join me in welcoming Erin Fulk to the podium.
Sound good? Okay. I just made her commit to my podcast while she was still here. So I'll get your email from Jenny. Thank you very much. Thank you guys for coming. I really appreciate it, and that sounds way fancier, so someone on my team wrote that, and that was really, really nice. The only part they missed is that I have over 15,000 LinkedIn followers now, so just in case. I didn't want you guys to think we were lying to you. So my name is Erin Fulk, and I am the CEO and founder of Lillian James Creative. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about Lillian James Creative here in just a bit. What I want to do first is I kind of want to show you why I got asked to speak here and why I get asked to speak all over both Kansas City and some cities outside of Kansas City. So, started my company, Lillian James Creative. At the heart, we're a social media company. I love social media, like weirdly love social media. And so when everyone said that's not a job, I just decided to prove them wrong. And it is a really great job. I also host the Cocktail Hour podcast. What the Cocktail Hour podcast is it is a podcast platform. It's on everything like iTunes, Spotify, all of that, where I get to have some of the city's most influential women in our office to talk about what it looks like behind the scenes. And it's really, really fun. My whole reason for starting the podcast was we're a very small social media company, and we just started in June 2016. So I knew that I would never get a Dr. Andrea Hendricks, who sits on the exec team at Cerner, in my office for any other reason than if she wanted to talk about herself and put it out there, right? Or Stacy Prosser from the Business Journal. We just got her on the books today. So I get to have these really awesome women in. And then what I did, because I enjoy margaritas, I gave them margaritas during it, which is an amazing thing to do because then people open up. And so it organically turned into a podcast where people tell you all the crap they had to go through before they got to their big fancy position, right? And it started growing and growing, and now we're being compared to Oprah's Super Soul Sunday and Rachel Hollis's live podcast. The podcast we launched last week, we actually had a LinkedIn exec on, and I'm headed to New York to have a Kate Spade exec on next month. So it's definitely growing, so check it out. I have a new video series called Above the Fray coming out. If you do anything in the business world or have ever been to a networking opportunity in the business world, you might have met Ezzy Redwood. He is a local genius, graduated high school at 14, college at 18, owns all the Wings cafes. We like to say it's kind of the Martha Stewart Snoop Dogg show, and I'm Snoop Dogg because he really has his life together. So that will be coming out very soon, within like the next 2 weeks, and that will have very influential business and influencers on it as well. So we've filmed a couple series that just isn't out just yet. I just was slated for the Junior League Board of Directors, and so I will be sitting as the marketing position on there. I've been in Junior League for 9 years. I sit on the Central Exchange Corporate Advisory Council Board, and I just rolled off the Hispanic Chamber Board of Directors. I did my 2-year term. So could have reran, but I had some other commitments, but that's an amazing chamber as well. So I like to start with a super fancy resume so that you know they just didn't find me on Instagram or something and say, oh, it looks like she has a lot of followers. Here's kind of my proof. My LinkedIn is, see, remember I told you it was over 15,000. They took the screenshot yesterday. So it's 15,713. So this is my LinkedIn. The whole reason I show you guys this is because I'm going to get into who I really am. But I want you to understand that at some point, 15,713 people found me interesting enough to follow for business. So just let that sink in. It's still sinking in with my family somewhere. But so that's kind of my legitimate resume, why I get asked to come out and speak, and why I put on heels. Because every other day I wear leggings and stuff like that. So don't get too used to this look. A little bit about my company. Started June 26, 2016. I'm so bad at actually like tracking dates and times, but I set up our Facebook this date, so I would never remember what day that I actually applied for our business licenses. Fun fact, did you guys know that people usually set up their business Facebook before they apply for their business license now? Isn't that crazy? Because it's super easy to do both, but it's a little bit easier to set up your Facebook. So we do have 13 employees. We're making an offer to a girl today. Hopefully she says yes. I think she will. She went through 3 interviews, so that'd be a lot of work to say no. And we have a final interview with somebody on Monday. So hopefully be at 15 employees by Monday. We hit $1 million in sales in early 2018, so very quickly grew. In less than 2 years, we hit $1 million in sales. We should be $1 million for all of 2019 a year. Goal's 1.2 this year. And I started this company with absolutely no funding, so everything has just been bootstrapped, is what they call it in startup world. Pretty much I got a bartending job at night to pay the bills. And I only had to do that for 4 weeks. And we've been called the fastest growing marketing company in Kansas City by a few different publications. The reason that I started this company is because Nike came to me and they wanted me to work on one of their campaigns. So how does Nike find somebody in Kansas City? Through LinkedIn, right? And so that's really where I've been able to grow my business. Obviously, I have an amazing, amazing team at this point, but the reason that I was able to quit bartending after 4 weeks and have a business that was actually paying my bills was because Nike came to me, and because of my LinkedIn, and because I wrote on my LinkedIn, hey, I'm going to start a business, and I had 3 or 4 clients by the end of week 1. Now, the only way that works is I really kind of caressed that LinkedIn for about 10 years beforehand, but I was putting content out. I was setting myself up as a thought leader in that space before I even made the jump to do it. That people such as Nike, which if you know marketing at all, like Nike's God, okay? They're not like God, but they're like God of marketing. When Nike comes, like, You do whatever Nike wants. Fun fact, Nike deal didn't even work out, but it was what made me say, if you've ever watched Steve Harvey, he says you just need to jump. That was my jump moment. And they ended up not taking the brand digital at all. It was some old baseball player that sells enough in Dick's Sporting Goods that they still don't even have a website, which is crazy, but they're making $100 million a year without any extra. So, okay, so here's what I like to do. So I've told you all my fancy stuff, and it sounds like I'm bragging a lot. And that's just so you guys will pay attention and act like that I have a fancy Harvard resume and that I know what I'm talking about. But here's the truth. I'm really not fancy at all. It's more just the story that I have made for myself and refuse to be a statistic, okay? So here I'm going to tell you my real life and my not so fancy things. So I'm 39 years old. Reason I put this in here, I've always had it like my age in here, and I was like, when we were redoing the slide yesterday, I was like, why do I put my age in here? Because it's never shock factor. Like, I look 39 years old at this point. So why do I have my age in here? And I realized, do you know that most people think after 35 that it's too late to do what they want to? They think that they're stuck. For me, it just never, one, I don't feel like I'm 39 years old, but two, if anything, if I would have started a business when I was 25, that would have been a hot mess express, right? Like, now I have all the wisdom. So understanding that I didn't do this when I was 25. Owning a social media company and not being a millennial, what? I did this because I wanted to and because I believed in myself, and I decided to make this story a happy ending. So I got married in December. Yay. The one person that knows me here is excited. Thank you. It took me a really long time to get married. I got married in December, but before that I was a single mom for 12 years. So we met and got married in 2018. And I was a single mom at 26 years old, right? And so this entire time that I've been trying to figure out who I was and what I wanted to do, I've been trying to do it with not one kid, but two, because I like to learn all of my lessons 2 times. So 2 kids by 2 different men, and statistically as they go, one father's a drug addict. He's not around. He used to come and go. We haven't seen him for years. He never paid $1. Luckily, I did a little bit better the second time. He's a really good dad, but still not together, right? So essentially raising 2 kids on my own, which makes it really scary to go start a company. And I did go to KU for a really strong 2 years, but I spent most of my time on Mass Street. So I didn't end up leaving with a degree. Fun part of my job is that everything that I would have learned there wouldn't matter anyways. Obviously, it's not the same as your guys' jobs, right? But for my job, we were meeting at Kinko's to do advertising. So there was no social media. I think we had Ethernet in our dorm rooms, and that was a really big deal that year. But I don't have a college degree. And now I sit at the table with a lot of awesome women that do, and nobody flinches. For me, this was kind of my Achilles heel for a long time. And actually, I'm still talking through it in therapy, because I often say to people that there's no reason to say it at all, is I don't have a college degree. And they're like, okay. And then we just finish talking, and it's weird, and I make it weird and awkward. But this was kind of my thing that I was like insecure about, right? Do you know how hard it is to get a job without a college degree? It's really hard, especially with the applying online that we do now. It just kicks it out, right? The minute you say no, nobody ever sees that. So what ended up happening is I use this because owning your business, nobody cares if you have a college degree in some industries, and social media marketing, they don't. So I was able to use this because my options were very limited without that college degree. And then this is a fun one I like to point out, because I realized people are starting to talk about it, but they weren't talking about it 10 years ago when I was struggling really, really bad. I suffer from incredible anxiety and depression. I have tried to commit suicide twice in the past, and I didn't even know this was a thing we were going to talk about, right? And so for years I was struggling with this on my own. Part of what's awesome on my podcast is half of these women that you see in their pearls and their heels and in front of major speaking events like this, they also suffer from some of the same crap, right? There's a lot more of us suffering from it than speak about. And so even when I was starting my business, even a year into my business, I had some major anxiety where I couldn't leave my house for about 2 weeks because it was just too much, right? I was very lucky that I was having a lot of success, but it was still just too much because when you're suffering, you don't get to choose when you suffer from that. So the reason that I like to point out all the not fun stuff about myself is A, it's real, right? And B, again, why do 15,713, is that what it was? Why do those people follow me on LinkedIn? It's because I've decided, besides all of this, despite all of this stuff, to just make my own story, right? And what I did is 10 years ago, LinkedIn came out and you got to make your resume. And a fun fact on LinkedIn is you don't have to say if you have a degree or not. You can say how long you went to college there. And so for me, instead of sending resumes in, I started sending in my LinkedIn profile, way before people are talking about LinkedIn like they are now. And it started helping me create this own story of who I am and what success looked like. And over the years, it's helped me start my company. It's helped me make some incredible friends. I have friends that work at Twitter. The first employee ever at Twitter is one of my best friends. Somebody that works at Slack on their social media team. I have people really all over the nation that I like to call my friends. I haven't even met them all in person, but I've met them all through LinkedIn, and they're all major thought leaders in this space. So even when something happens and I don't know the answer, which is more than not, I'm able to reach out to people that do have the answer. And that's all happened because I've really set up a cool personal brand. Now, my personal brand has really been based off LinkedIn. I have some other friends that have set up their personal brands off of other platforms. I have a girlfriend in Dallas, Texas, who was in a really, really, really bad marriage and raising kids and no money, and she really liked to decorate her house, so she started posting pictures to Instagram years ago, and she now makes $250,000 on her contracts between World Market and Target and Home Goods, and she was able to leave that crappy husband too, right? And decorate her new house, which is way cuter. So I was just going to go through some of the different platforms. I love LinkedIn. We said we were going to talk about LinkedIn. I'll probably talk about LinkedIn a little bit heavier, but I don't want you guys to just think that LinkedIn's the only way to make your story. It really depends what your story it is. It really depends what industry your story is. It really depends what sort of people you're trying to reach, right? And so I was going to go through just some fun facts on all of the social media sites that I think are important. For our company, we're on every single one. We're heavier on some than others. But I just wanted to give you some facts because I think social media is still a thing that, I think we're overthinking it's going to go away. It's here to stay. It's not for kids. We're kind of paying attention, but we still don't understand how important it is. How much, actually, right, we were talking over here on the side, talking about anti-vaxxers online, right? And how so many people have such wrong information because of social media. It's not because there's research out there that says anything that people are saying. It's just because of social media. Because our communities have now become social media. And whether you agree with it or you don't agree with it, it is what it is. And understanding how to take it and use it to your advantage is kind of what I'm going to go over really quick. And obviously this could be a 7-hour talk, right? So it's going to be a very quick highlight. But if you have any questions afterwards, we've set aside 15 minutes for that. And then after that, we'll even answer some more offline. So here's the number one thing. How do you think of yourself as a brand? So you're probably seeing a lot of stuff online of personal branding, personal branding, personal branding. And here, it just is what it is. Every single one of us are now a brand. And unless you start thinking of yourself as a brand, when it comes to finding a job, when it comes to advancing in your current job, into a career, into a higher job at wherever you're at, you have to think of yourself as a brand. A lot of people are making that decision based off your online profile more than ever. Do you guys know who these people are? Okay, let's ask it this way. Does anybody in this room not know who these people are? Anybody? Looking at you men, you guys know who they are, right? For sure. Okay, so clearly these are the Kardashians / Jenners. I think we just call them the Kardashians, right? And most of you probably cringed when I put this picture up. And I'm going to go ahead and guess that most people don't put their picture of the Kardashians in at this leadership series, right? All day, every day, these guys have done social media better than anybody in the world. These people are billionaires. Kylie Jenner yesterday, officially the youngest billionaire. There's been talk on it. Forbes came out yesterday. The youngest woman billionaire ever from social media. You can call it her makeup company all day long. We didn't know about her makeup if that wasn't social media, if she wasn't amazing at Instagram and Snapchat. All day long, these women have really proved that personal branding is here, and it really plays a big part in our culture. The fact that, look around, look at how many people we have here and how many different people we have here, right? And not one person raised their hand that they didn't know who the Kardashians were. Not one of you. Do you know how many celebrities you can say that with? Not very many. And we only know them from social media. They don't have any real, true talent. I mean, it's true, right? They don't, but they're really, their talent is social media. All right, so, not that I want you guys to all turn into the Kardashians. However, if you do, I get a cut of it. Just kidding. But how do we get just that sort of, how do we tell our own story? The Kardashians used something really controversial and turned that into a major story that they wanted told. Now, I'm going to tell you, I think Kris Jenner, not Kris Kardashian, Kris Jenner is one of the smartest people in the world, and she gets really left out when we're talking about women in business, right? Because she essentially kind of coordinated all that. But how do we turn ourselves into our own story? The number one thing that you need to do when it comes to your own personal brand is you need to understand what story is already being told about you. So, who in here has Googled themselves in the last 6 months? That's a really good percentage. Hey, this side's the heavy side, and only 2 of you guys raised your hands. Jordan, you didn't raise your hand. Okay, Jordan works with me. Make sure she's Googling herself. You guys aren't Googling yourselves? How do you know what people are saying about you? How do you know what people are doing that have your same names? So my awesome husband I just married, he is amazing. He does the laundry and cooks and cleans. It was worth the 39-year wait. However, it really was. However, he has a very it's not even a popular name. His name's Mark Stockwell. There is a Mark Stockwell that's not a good man, that's spending some time in and out of prison over the years. And so when we first started dating, I Googled him, which those of you that are dating are probably doing the same things, right? That's what right? I saw you. I Googled him because I tried to say it was dating safe or whatever. I'm also kind of a stalker, right? So I Googled him. I needed to get all the information and make sure that he was a good guy. And so when I Googled him, a lot of information came out about scary Mark Stockwell. And so I'm crazy, and he knows that, and I think he knew that from day one. So I was just like, I'm just going to need your middle name before I agree to meet you on date 2. And so he didn't even ask why, really, which is also maybe a red flag. But it worked out. His middle name is Randall, which is its own conversation. But Mark R. Stockwell versus Mark A. Stockwell, or whatever the other guy's middle initial was a much different outcome for me. It was a much different, I'm here, I'm alive, because it was Mark R. Stockwell, right? However, if he doesn't Google Mark Stockwell, how does he know what's coming out? So at the same time, he's now since started his business because it was very firmly a group decision at our house. But before that, he was looking for jobs. And he wasn't getting a ton of feedback, and he has an aviation degree. He's a smart dude. And I was like, I'm going to guess that part of this has to do with people are looking up Mark Stockwell and they're scared of you, right? They just are. There's no pictures with his criminal record. So we changed his resume to Mark R. Stockwell, and phone calls started to come in. So understanding what's out there is how you have to take control of your brand. You have to know what's out there very first. And then you get to define your own story. So that's when we're going to start talking about the different platforms that you can define your own story on. So, Facebook. Has anyone heard of this one? Just kidding. Here's the deal. Facebook's here. I just told you the stat about Facebook and how businesses set up a Facebook before they set up their personal LLC or whatever way they try to take their business. Facebook is one that we all know everybody's on. Did you know that 79% of every U.S. adult is on Facebook? So it is not a thing for kids. In fact, the demographic for Facebook right now is 45 and over, right? Like, it's not as cool with the kids. I don't do math, 21%. Those are the kids that aren't on there, because grandparents love Facebook right now. You know what else grandparents like? They like to say everything they've held in for the past 50 years on Facebook right now. Facebook has played some major, major parts in our political system, in our, really just in everything, right? I think by the time that they're blaming Facebook for who is or isn't the president, like, it's not going anywhere, right? This is allowing us to connect with the entire world and tell our story with the entire world. The average user spends 35 minutes a day on Facebook. Is there anyone in the room that does not have a Facebook? It's because you guys are smarties. Yeah, that's a really high percentage. Usually I have maybe one person in the room raise their hand in even bigger rooms. That's smart, and you guys are really probably doing way better mentally than the rest of us, to tell you the truth. But Facebook's not going anywhere. So if we're looking at telling our story, one of the things I like to say with Facebook is, understand you're not just on there. So whatever your views are and that you decide to put those out publicly, everybody else is seeing those. And you can think all day long you've got your privacy settings on. You can think that all day long. You've also got friends on there that have the ability to screenshot in 1 second. So just understand that when you're on here, yes, it's social media, it's a fun thing to be on, but it's also helping define your story. Have you guys ever had a friend on Facebook that really, maybe you're friends for 20 years, this has happened to me. You guys never talked about politics, because what did we never used to do? We never used to tell people our religious or our political views. We kept those to ourselves. And then they just start posting the craziest stuff you've ever seen. You can't believe it would come out of anyone's mouth, and that's like your friend. And then a lot of us end up not liking that friend anymore, or unfriending that friend, or avoiding that friend. So it's not just social and fun. It is how you are telling your story to the world, right? Instagram. Does anybody in here not have an Instagram? So that's usually what happens. Do you guys know that Facebook owns Instagram? So when we're looking at different platforms, there's two big players. There's Google and there's Facebook, and they own a lot of the stuff. And so if you really are trying to tell a really good story on Facebook, or build a brand or build a story on Facebook, you gotta have an Instagram. They love when you play with all of their toys, right? So using Instagram is essentially going to help your Facebook. There are 800 million monthly active users on Instagram, and 95 million photos uploaded every single day. Instagram is really getting into the e-commerce game. So if you have a product to sell or services to sell, really products more, you can really play that game on Instagram really well. And then the average user spends 15 minutes a day on Instagram. So Instagram, where we thought we were just posting pictures for a little bit, that is now becoming a major, major player in how we tell our story. And at the end of the day, we're all getting very conditioned to tell our story through imagery more than content, right? How about a Twitter? Does anybody not have a Twitter? I'm trying to look at the men in here. Oh, you surprised me. You guys all surprised me, all you men. Twitter's kind of a man's playground. It's kind of the what do they call the basement? We don't have a basement. Is it the man cave? That's Twitter, right? Twitter's doing, and I don't think I put this on here. We'll get into this in a minute, but do you guys know that 24% of Twitter users are media people? So we are now getting our news from Twitter. Boys are really getting their sports news, maybe some women, but not me, from Twitter, right? They do live streaming on sports on Twitter. Like, this is a boys' playground. I have a friend, Joel Goldberg. He does the talking before and after the Royals games. He's got 90,000 Twitter followers. We were at an event the other day that I'm pretty sure we were supposed to be quiet at and not be talking to each other in the audience, but something happened with the Royals, and he was like, I have to tweet this, or it looks bad on my job if I don't get this on Twitter right this second. And I was like, it can't wait 10 minutes till the lady's done talking. And he's like, it really can't. These 90,000 people are waiting for me to tell them that we just picked up some baseball guy. I don't know sports. And so, sorry, I just don't. I'm sure if you guys know sports, you know who we picked up. This is not about sports, and it's International Women's Day, so I'm not going to talk about sports. So, Twitter, 1.3 billion, not million, 1.3 billion accounts. 44% of that billion have never even received one tweet. So people have gone and set this up, and they've never done anything with it. However, the other people are tweeting a lot. They tweet 6,000 tweets every single second. Here's the deal. Twitter is not owned by Google or Facebook. It is my prediction. Oh, this is streaming, so you guys got it on camera. It is my prediction that Twitter will be bought by Facebook or Google by the end of 2020, or bought by somebody, but probably them. Microsoft could be the dark horse in it. I don't know. But Twitter is finally, for the very first time, back in the black. They're showing profit. So Twitter is becoming very important when it comes to SEO results. So you guys know if you Google something, especially if it's live, like the Oscars or sports or something like that, the tweets come up at the top of your Google and they come up at the top of your Facebook, right? That is because everybody's kind of flirting with Twitter and seeing how that could help them grow their own little playgrounds. So I think you have to be on Twitter if you're trying to tell your story, because I think it's going to become very important. If you're trying to tell your story to men at all, you got to be on Twitter. Okay, Pinterest. Who here doesn't have Pinterest? Everybody raise their hands. Oh, wow. That's way less of you had Instagram. Okay, cool. Well, Pinterest, I'm glad that you guys are on Pinterest. Do you guys know that Pinterest is the third largest search engine on the entire internet? There's 200 million active users, and users spend 75 minutes per visit. 83% of people that go to Pinterest have made a purchase. So now Pinterest knows that, and starting this week, they started announcing they are now going to make it that you're able to purchase straight from Pinterest, right? So if you're doing I'm convinced that everybody has a side gig, right? So if your side gig is selling jewelry, that's going to be awesome, because Etsy, essentially, most people have been going to Etsy to have to purchase that, and Pinterest is getting in the Etsy game. And so I think that's going to roll out by mid-year is kind of the plan. But all of a sudden, Pinterest is making itself even more valuable to us. YouTube. Anybody here have a YouTube? Let's do it that way. Oh, look you guys up. Okay, YouTube is the second biggest search engine on the internet. So it goes Google, YouTube, Pinterest. Do you guys know who owns YouTube? Google, right? So again, kind of like Instagram, if you're playing with Google's toys, they like you better. There's never anything worse than seeing a Vimeo or however you say it, video on a website, because you want Google to be able to find you, so they want you to put that on YouTube. YouTube has 1 billion hours of video watched every single day. 1 billion hours. Only about half of that is my kid. So, half of the views are coming from mobile. So a lot of people still aren't optimizing all of their stuff on YouTube for mobile. So if you're trying to tell your story on there, making sure that it makes sense on an iPhone screen or a Samsung screen is huge, rather than nobody's watching it on their really big screen at the office, and it's the second largest search engine. All right, let's talk about my favorite. So LinkedIn has 500 million members. Only 17% of small businesses use LinkedIn at all. 17! And wait till this. I like you because you have these cool facial things. Only 1 million members out of 500 million have ever posted content. So who in here thinks of LinkedIn as just, I'm going to get on my LinkedIn when I'm looking for a job? You can raise your hands because it's usually everybody. LinkedIn is really, especially in business world, if you're trying to set yourself apart as a thought leader, this is where you can do it now, and you can do it easily without having to spend a ton of money. If you remember Facebook 6 years ago, like organic reach was super easy to get. That's LinkedIn right now. LinkedIn is quickly, I was there, I think they have a picture. I was there 2 weeks ago. I was really excited. I took my picture by every blue eye in the whole entire place. It's a very exciting time for me, guys. Very exciting. They have gone from 2,000 to 5,000 employees in the last 2 years. So you guys know, a little over 2 years ago, Microsoft bought LinkedIn because Microsoft said, this has got to be something. It's kind of been sitting idle for a very long time. So in Silicon Valley, which is where LinkedIn is, you know, everybody has their own little circles. And so in Silicon Valley, they have their own little things. So Google is known as kind of the pretentious one. And LinkedIn is known as where all the nice people work, and, which is really good because I like nice people. And half of LinkedIn's employees have come from Google. So they've got a lot of smart people working at LinkedIn to really change how we look at business and networking. And they've got some cool things coming out to be able to live stream through LinkedIn. That's one of the things that's going to be available here in the next couple of months. They're beta testing it. I'm telling you right now, I've grown $1 million a year business solely because I had a good LinkedIn presence at first. Obviously, it takes a team going forwards, but that LinkedIn presence at very first is what helped me really get off of the ground. Finally, if you don't define your brand will be defined for you. And one of the things I wanted to talk about is you can have the most awesome brand in the world. You really can. And you can have the most awesome graphics, and you can have the most awesome video, and you can have the most awesome content. But the truth is if you have awesome stuff, you're gonna grow, right? You're gonna have to have people on your team. And I've said quite a few times today, I don't do it by myself because I don't. I have a really, really amazing team that works alongside of me. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about leadership. Part of what I wanted to talk about is that I didn't know this piece when I started my business, right? I was in survival mode for 12 years. One of the things I knew that would never happen in my office is our electricity would never get shut off. And it didn't matter if we were in the red or not because I knew how to negotiate with KCP&L pretty good, right? And bounce from that even pay to not even pay. I did that for years. I knew which months they wouldn't shut off my stuff and I could skip the payment and come back. What I didn't know is that when I grew so quickly, I had to hire people to sit beside me. And I was a really bad leader at first. And I had a lot of trust issues because by the time you have 2 kids by yourself, right, you got trust issues for days. And I had really bad anxiety. And I didn't know how I was going to do this. And so I got very lucky because the city that we live in, women really, really support other women in this city. And I don't know how many of you guys have been able to feel that. I didn't know it because I wasn't looking for help. I wasn't asking for help. I was pure, I got this mode from day one. And I have a really crappy family, so I didn't grow up with that, right? But I started going to events, and as a woman business owner, you start getting invited to a lot of women-only events. And I think this is amazing because I didn't even put together that it was going to be International Women's Day when I was here, right? But I have grown my company on the shoulders of a lot of women. And then I have become a better leader on the shoulders of a lot of women. And now I have a team of 13. 4 of them are men and the other are women. And both those men and those women have been incredible to work with. Now, I've had a lot of bad people that I hired because I was bad at hiring and bad at leadership. But at the end of the day, I have had people that every time I made a mistake, they said, here, let me help you fix your mistake. And so when it comes to leadership, my only advice as leadership is don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to say, I don't know how to do this, because I didn't know how to do this. There are some women out there that are just amazing, and a lot of people have already learned the lessons that you're trying to learn. And if you don't be really honest of, I need to know how to do this, then they don't know what to tell you. And the minute, I'm lucky because I'm like a total open book, right? So I was like, I just suck at this. And they'd be like, well, this is what I learned. I sucked at that too. So I was just going to go through some different people and kind of tell you guys what I learned. So obviously, I think I've made it very clear that I'm a big Kris Jenner fan, right? As polarizing as it is, my team told me. As polarizing it is, I like Kris Jenner. You know what I like? Because no matter what we throw at her, she doesn't care. She still does it anyways. right? Sheryl Sandberg, if you guys haven't read her first and second book, her first book's the first thing I did. The first week that I quit my job, I read her book, Lean In. It resonated a lot with me. It didn't resonate a lot with me because she had a big fancy degree and she had a very rich husband that worked at Google, and then that very rich husband died, and then she wrote a second book, and then she did interviews, and she said, guess what? My first book, that didn't resonate with women that were raising kids on their own. And guess what I was doing? I was raising kids on my own. And that second book was huge because here's Sheryl Sandberg, the COO of Facebook, saying, I screwed up. I thought this was this pro-women book, and it was only pro-women of women that looked and thought like me, right? Dr. Michelle Robin, I don't know if you guys know her. She owns Your Wellness Connection out in Shawnee. This is a woman that I looked at from afar for a really long time, and I sat in a room with her last year, and I walked up to her and I said, I've called your office like a dozen times. Can't get an appointment with you. How do I do that? Most people probably would have never done that. Her and her partner now have really adopted me as their daughter, their pseudo-daughter. My kids, they celebrate our kids' birthdays. My daughter's stepmother sees her now. Like, they have really embraced us. And she has learned all the lessons of women business owners over the past 25 years. So anytime I have a question, she lets me call. Courtney Thomas, the CEO of Central Exchange. I don't know if you guys are very familiar with Central Exchange, but they do some awesome programs for women. And I couldn't afford to go there when I first started my company. And so I found her office, because again, you can't get an appointment with her at the time. She had just moved over there. And I walked into her office and I said, hey, your website sucks. I'll build you a new website if you let me come here for free. And she said, well, I'm glad that we're on the same page about the website. She was new. And she said, how about I let you and every woman you hire come here for free? And we still do corporate sponsorship. Jolsette Hernandez-Jones, look her up. She is one of my very best friends. I didn't know her the day I started this. I sat on the Hispanic Chamber Board. She used to clean the halls of Bishop Miege so she could afford to go to high school there because she wanted that education. Also didn't graduate high school, or didn't graduate college, she graduated high school. She now owns a $5 million company. She'll be on the cover of Thinking Bigger magazine next month, so make sure you grab that. She owns a recruiting company, and she has won every award in the world. Michelle Obama, if you haven't read her new book, I mean, you just can't get more real than that. Ellen DeGeneres, come on guys, how nice is she? What people don't remember is they don't remember all the crap she went through, right? When she came out as gay on her TV show and how bad that was. And for me, I remember watching that, and I remember being like, she just, everything said she sank her career, and she didn't let it define her. This lady's name is Susan. I can't say her last name. I'm not going to try to. She is the CEO of YouTube. She is the only C-suite, or the only CEO in Silicon Valley that is a woman. And she is really changing the culture alone of Silicon Valley. This is Jill Hathaway. She's my business coach at the SBA. It turns out in Kansas City, our taxes pay for each and every single one of us to have a free business coach if you have an LLC or above. You guys can go over to the SBA. It's at 70th and Troost, and they will assign with you the right person. She used to own a ton of shoe stores, sold them, and essentially all the coaches of that program have built big businesses and sold them, and I think it's more of their way of giving back to the community. Beyonce, because she's Beyonce, right? Like, she just doesn't give a crap. And how lucky are we that we get to know Beyonce? Oprah, because she's Oprah. Sharice Davis, because I live in the part of Shawnee that Kevin Yoder didn't bother to even hang a sign in, right? And every single piece of mail that came to my house was in both English and Spanish. And my kids are the minority at their school, and it's a very Hispanic populated area, and she cared enough to reach out. I had to wait in line for the first time to vote, ever, you guys. And you know what Kevin Yoder did? Nada. Not one sign in my neighborhood. This is Shanna Demick. She runs First Ham Foundation at Cerner. She was diagnosed with a brain tumor last year, and she never once batted her eye. She had it out, and it came out. I have an MRI coming up in 3 weeks. Guess who's the first person that I reached out to? This woman is incredible. Rachel Hollis, because she essentially is just killing it right now. When she comes and speaks, she charges $75,000, so one day I'm going to be her. And and this is my incredible team, except for Jordan, because I brought her in person because she wasn't here. She was in Germany or something when we took this photo, so you just get a look at her in person. But every single one of these people have really essentially worked with me and helped me become the leader that I am. And we can't become what we need to be by remaining what we are. And I just ask that you remember that today. Thanks.
Does anyone have any questions for Erin?
Come on, guys.
Come on, I know,
Remember,
seriously.
you're just supposed to ask questions. We just talked about
Feisty.
that.
I do have a question.
Awesome, thank you.
So, I heard Erin speak last year at the Central Exchange Leadership Lyceum. But one thing you talked about, and maybe you could just talk a little bit about this, was your LinkedIn kind of tagline.
Oh, yeah.
And so, and that really resonated with me a lot, and I actually thought about that. But can you maybe just talk a little bit about what makes a good little tag, or just very briefly talk about what makes good LinkedIn content, or that first glance?
Absolutely. So in LinkedIn, the way that people have to really get to know who you are, and I'm looking up what mine says now, just for shock value, if nothing else, is that they see you in their news feed, right? So if you comment on somebody's, much like how Facebook works. However, it's your name, and then it's your headline, I believe is what they're calling it right now. The name's changed a couple of times. Essentially, I like to say that's where you get to be a rapper, because that's where you get to write your hook, right? And a lot of people just say, Erin Fulk, CEO. Well, then they have no reason to visit my page and understand who I am, what I do, what organizations I volunteer with, and stuff like that. So writing a really good hook that people, long enough so you get the ... and they've got to click on you to read the rest of it, is really essential on LinkedIn to getting more page views, which leads to more people connecting with you, which leads to more business, because we are already working with the people that we already know, right? So I'm going to read you guys mine. I host the most awesome podcast for women in business and speak all over the country. Started from the bottom, now I'm here. Thank you. LinkedIn influencer, and just like Cardi B, I like $, $. Booking info below. So, I would really highly encourage you to change your LinkedIn profile to not just your job, or not just what your title is, and change it to something that's about you, that'll draw people in, that will draw your people in. Because one of the biggest lessons I've learned the past 2 years is not everybody's my people, right? And if they don't like Cardi B, they can not like Cardi B, but if they hate Cardi B, they're not my people, right? And so I want those people to connect with me, those people that are my people. And then, if you want, connect with me, and then I'll tell you what I think about your headline.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Okay, that had to lead to at least one more question. Nobody.
Oh, there's. Oh.
Yes, hi.
Here, I got it.
Okay.
Do you trust me to throw this to you? All right, you ready?
Oh, good job.
Got it. So this is kind of a related question. So on Facebook, I'm not on LinkedIn too much. We were just talking, some friends and I, the other day. We don't really know how to use it very well. But I'm on Facebook, and you see on Facebook, there's a lot of MLM stuff that's really saturating that market. The same videos, the same products. How do you set yourself apart, stay relevant, and not just fall into that trap of kind of following the herd of what all the other groups are
As an
doing?
MLM provider?
Well, as an MLM or a small business person or whatever, you see people are just kind of doing the same thing, makeup tutorials and,
Or my cousin that hasn't talked to me in 10 years yesterday, hey, do you want to have an online party for you and your friends? They look like they have some good money. I'm like, you haven't talked to me in 10 years.
So it's really putting a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths, and they're kind of like, oh, I don't even want to look at your profile now. I don't want to hear what you're selling. I don't want to do that. So how do you grow a business without falling into that trap of putting a bad taste in other people's mouths?
So the one thing that a lot of people forget with social media is there's two simple rules to sales, right? We have to trust you, and we have to like you. And then maybe we'll do business with you, right? And so I think MLMs they have done enough. So here's what happens in MLM world, is that you get to go to a conference and you get to drink the Kool-Aid, and they teach 10,000 people all the exact same thing, so it all starts all at once, and now every MLM is doing the same thing, right? Again, that would be no different than if every single social media company was doing the same thing we're doing. It just wouldn't work. It wouldn't resonate with people. The other thing MLMs are doing really bad right now is that they aren't developing actual relationships. And so I don't think it matters if you're selling Lululemon leggings, Mary Kay, or your social media company, or you're a dentist. I think if you have good original content that speaks to people and you have genuine relationships with people where they ask to work with you versus you having to constantly ask to work with them, then you set yourselves apart all day long. What happens is a lot of MLM people are just trying to have a side hustle without really figuring out their passion. Passion sells. If you are passionate, you have a relationship, and you have original content that doesn't look the same as everybody else, then passion sells. Don't hit people up in Messenger. You have no business hitting up, right? Don't make your group and add a bunch of people that can't figure out how to get out of it. Otherwise, you just become one of those people. But people are making some serious money on Facebook is having a very natural conversation. We have a client who has a probiotic, and it's a very natural sedative, and I don't want to have any medical talk, but because I don't know enough about it in this room. But what she does is she has a natural conversation with every single person that messages her with a question. And it's never click here to buy, click here to buy. She asks, what are your symptoms? What's going on? Do you need to talk to somebody? And her husband were both able to quit their jobs and do this full time and support their kids and send them to private school. And because it's a natural trust relationship, and makes it all like her content is just very original and very much to her brand and who she is. Does that help a little bit? But I still think LinkedIn's a space that people aren't utilizing enough, and MLMs haven't figured them out yet. So it's a good space.
MLM for those days.
Mid-level marketing, Lululemon leggings, Mary Kay, remember those Jamberries or whatever? That was my favorite. Those are stickers. That's what those are. Sorry if you sell them. Does anybody else have a question?
So how did your business begin? I mean, through LinkedIn?
Okay, so they only gave me 45 minutes. I used to talk a little longer, so I was trying to squeeze a lot of it in. My business began, I bought my URL for my company years ago. Again, I could barely pay my electric bill, right? So I was selling marketing services at an agency with some really crappy owners. So I spent 4 years there, kind of just paying the bills. And now looking back, I got to learn a lot of lessons, but I knew that I wanted to start a social media company before I ever started there. And I was just waiting for the right time to do it. And all the stars aligned. They got hit with class action lawsuit, which allowed them to let me out of my non-compete if I didn't join the class action lawsuit. Nike found me on LinkedIn. And again, to my comment about relationships, Nike, every brand has its own board at Nike. So somebody found me on LinkedIn. They were trying to choose just a social media person, not necessarily a big agency, to run a brand that is a $100 million brand with no digital. It's an old baseball player that was about to hit the Hall of Fame in like 2 months. So it was a little last minute anyways. Someone from their board said my name. I actually had a friendship with somebody that sat on the board randomly too and said, oh yeah, I know her. Called and said, hey, if you want to start your company, this is the time. The weird part is that friendship that I still have, he's a major music producer. I have never once met him in person. He met a friend of mine somewhere. We had a 3-way call. He had a marriage that was a bad marriage, and some paparazzi got a hold of pictures and put them online. I was able to, at the time, way back in the day, help him get them off online because they weren't the paparazzi's pictures to put online. Because of that, all these people ended up in the same room in LA, gave me a call, and I started working on the Nike contract, which it turns out everything with Nike is like working with Nike, right? It takes forever. But I had to leave. My values wouldn't let me do that while I was still at my company. So I left. I put on LinkedIn, I'm starting this company, and had 4 clients by the end of the month. Yeah. So then my time started getting just fun. My time started getting really... I just couldn't go to all my clients because I was working in my garage and nobody wanted to come to my garage. So back to my point about just asking, I have a firm belief everyone will go to Shawnee Mission Parkway in the whole city because it's the middle of the city. So I made an appointment at every office space on Shawnee Mission Parkway, and I had no money for office space. So I went into my appointments one day and asked every single person if they'd like free social media for free office space. They all told me no. But the salesperson and me followed up the following week just to make sure they meant that. And one guy said yes, and he ended up selling the building, but we got him so many clients that he was able to do that through social media, and he's still a client today, a paid client now.
So it sounds like a lot about relationship building and passion.
Which is what social media is. And I think that people forget that part, right? Is all these people are on there, but how do you have relationships with them? Yeah. Any other questions? You did have your hand up back there. Was that your same question? Oh, no, now she's like, that one me. Okay, well, thank you guys so much for letting me come out today. It was great to meet you. We have free headshot cards, so if you want a new headshot for your LinkedIn, just call us and we'll get you scheduled in our studio on Shawnee Mission Parkway. Thank you.